Good morning, hello, and welcome to the channel. I'm glad you're here. Today, we are exploring a concept that redefines how organizations anticipate, defend against, and respond to cyber threats, the digital twins in cybersecurity space. Now, you might have heard of digital twins in the context of manufacturing or aerospace, where they serve as virtual replica of physical machines or systems. But in the world of cybersecurity and technology, digital twins are emerging as powerful tools that allow us to see, simulate, and secure complex digital environments in real time. In this video, we'll unpack the cybersecurity value of digital twins, how they enable predictive defenses, behavioral monitoring, and attack simulations without putting the real systems at risk. We'll look at how digital twins actually work, the physical systems, data feeds, AI engines, and security modules that makes them tick. Then we'll go industry wide, from financial services and cloud infrastructure to small factories and healthcare, to see where and how digital twins are already making a difference. I'll also walk you through real world case studies where digital twins have helped detect fraud, simulate ransomware, and preempt cyber physical disruptions. Of course, no solution is without challenges. So, we'll explore the implementation hurdles like data accuracy, model security, and regulatory concerns. You will also hear about the future of cybersecurity strategy through the lens of digital twins, from integrating with SOC operations to enabling autonomous threat responses. And for those looking for simple analogy, I'll compare it to something we all understand: securing your homes. Finally, we'll wrap up with future trends and innovations, including cyber physical convergence, AI driven twin orchestration, and digital twin as a service model. So, whether you are a student, an IT professional, or a cybersecurity leader, this video will give you a 360-degree understanding of how digital twins are becoming a cybersecurity game changer. So, let's dive in. This is your host, Savit Vittal Salyan. Welcome to this video. Namaskar. The agenda. A digital twin is a virtual representation of a physical object, a system, or process. It mimics the real world counterpart in real time by using data from sensors and systems to mirror behavior, performance, and status. Initially popular in manufacturing and aerospace, digital twins are now finding use across critical infrastructure, smart cities, and even IT systems. From a cybersecurity perspective, digital twins offer a unique capability: the ability to simulate and monitor the security state of an environment in real time, anticipate attacks, and test defenses, all without risking the real system. Digital twins gives you a clear real-time map of your IT or business environment. Think of it like having X ray vision into all your digital systems. What's connected to what, how data flows, and where problem might occur. Cybersecurity value of digital twins provides enhanced visibility and situational awareness. Digital twins provide end to end visibility across assets, networks, and processes. They integrate operational technology and IT systems into one dynamic model, helping cybersecurity teams understand asset interdependency, understand the attack surface, and understand the risk exposure. Asset interdependency. This is about how things rely on each other. What it means? Well, assets like servers, apps, database, switches are connected and dependent on each other to function properly. If one fails, it could impact others down the line. A simple analogy: in a house, if your Wi Fi router stops working, your smart TV, security camera, Alexa won't work either. That's dependency. Now, from a digital twin use perspective, a digital twin shows how these links clearly. For example, if your payment gateway depends on a core database, which depends on a cloud server, and that cloud server, if is vulnerable, then all the connected services are at risk. So digital twin helps map the domino effect of a failure or a cyber attack. Attack surface, it's where attackers can break in. That's an attack surface, that's known as an attack surface. What it means? An attack surface is all the entry point an attacker can use to access your systems, including your devices, your apps, your users, your APIs, and even misconfigured settings. Example: your house has doors, windows, garage, Wi Fi. Now, each one is an entry point for the attacker. The more points, the more chances for a thief to get in, or an attacker to get in. From a digital twin perspective, the digital twin shows every exposed or weak entry point, such as an old VPN gateway, or an open port in a firewall, or an unpatched mobile banking app's API. It gives a real time visual of where you are exposed, like lightening up a weak spot on a heat map. Risk exposure? Well, it's how bad things could get. What it means? Well, risk exposure is the potential damage if a threat actually gets in. It combines likelihood, which is how likely an attack is for your infrastructure, for your asset, and how much harm it could cause if an attacker really attacks it. What is the damage to you? What's the loss that you can incur? That's impact. Simple analogy: if your front door lock is weak and you store gold jewelry right near it, your risk exposure is high. Now, digital twins simulates attacks can simulate attacks and show what systems would go down, how far the attacker could move inside the networks, what business process would stop working, like the customer onboarding or fund transfer. Now, this helps you to prioritize your security actions. Focus first on the highest risk area. So, using digital twin concept, you can and the tools you can simulate what can go wrong, what are your weak spots, and you can work on fixing it by prioritizing the most critical ones first. Now, why it matters? Well, without a digital twin, these factors are scattered across spreadsheets, siloed tools, or hidden in log files. But with a digital twin, you see everything in one place in real time. You can predict problems before they happen, and you are better prepared to defend, detect, and respond. You can proactively detect threats using AI ML model on the digital twins. You can detect behavioral anomalies. You can simulate attacks like penetration testing, and you can forecast vulnerabilities before they are exploited. Let's look at some of the case studies so it helps us to get a better perspective. The first case study is theoretical, but let's go through it so that we have some better perspective. It's detecting behavioral anomalies in a financial institution. Now, the scenario: a large private bank creates a digital twin of its transaction processing system using live data from its payment gateway, from its customer facing apps, and its backend systems. The objective is to detect unusual or potentially fraudulent behavior in real time without disturbing the actual system. Using AI and ML implementation, the machine learning models were trained to understand what is normal transaction behavior first. See, understanding the normal is critical here. What's normal transaction patterns? What's the frequency? What's the amount? Which are the geographies? And which are the devices the users are using? This is creating the baseline. Then a digital twin simulates the entire transaction flow, including customer login, transfers, and logout events. The expectation is it will look at what it will look at is a sudden whether there is sudden surge in small rapid transfer to foreign accounts at night, subtle and would bypass traditional fraud rules. This model flags behavioral anomalies which turned out to be low and slow fraud campaigns. Now, what are we doing here? As I said, the objective is to identify unusual patterns, fraudulent patterns if there are any. So how it is done? First, you create a digital twin, a replica of your existing infrastructure. In this case, the data payment gateway, the customer app, backend systems. Most of the inputs or all of the input if possible with your design. Once you do that, you run the simulation wherein you are using AI and ML, which will study the current pattern. It will understand what normal looks like. Once it knows what normal looks like, and then when you start feeding them new data or the other data which is to investigate, it can differentiate compared to the baseline whether something is abnormal, potentially fraudulent. The objective here is to understand. The impact is to ensure that we understand patterns, the trigger of actions, potential corrections in the way we tune our systems, changes in our standard operating models, without impacting the real systems, the production systems. You are doing all of this on the digital twins. The impact is the real system stays unaffected. Fraud was intercepted early without blocking all user transactions. Insights were used to refine the fraud detection rules in the live environment. So initially, the way it will be, you would have your digital twins created. You would run that digital twin using the data that you have in the past. You might have many potential cases of fraud which has already been detected through your past incidents. You feed that data. So now it knows what a normal looks like and what a potential fraud looks like. Then it has that intelligence to differentiate the two. Then when something of a transaction in real time is happening and it also passes through the digital twin infrastructure, if you have matured your system to that level, it can differentiate, identify abnormal transaction and behavior, triggering off an alarm. But then in this case, you can tune only those areas which are the real cause of concern without affecting the rest. Having said that, it also gives you a heads up info on what can potentially go wrong in future, so you can have an offline work done on either tuning your rules, either your firewall rules or your logics, or identify the gaps in your current infrastructure, fix those up, maybe during off business hours, refine your response time so you can reduce the response time when there is an incident, the actual incident, saving you time. So digital twin helps you in that. Let's look at case 2. This is about penetration testing via digital twin in a government IT network. Now, in this case, NATO Communication and Information Agency is the source. Objective: use a cyber digital twin to simulate cyber attack on critical NATO communication systems without disrupting real operations. What they did, they built a digital twin of their command and control networks. They simulated various attack vectors like phishing, privilege escalation, lateral movement. Using AI and ML, the AI agents were deployed to mimic the attacker's behavior, which is the red team action, and the defender's behavior, the blue team action. The ML model evaluated how quickly the attacks moved, what paths were taken, and where detection failed. The outcome of this exercise exposed blind spot in intrusion detection system, allowed safe tuning of firewall and access rules, and strengthened cyber defenses without risking live operations. Now you take out NATO, put your organization in this. You think it is your organization, put your name there. And think about whether this can be done for your organization. The answer is potentially yes. You need to build up your digital twin of your own critical systems. Could be your command and control, could be your network operations center, could be your SOC, and create the red team action list and a blue team action list on the digital twin. Then study it to see how well the attack was, how successful it was, or how successful your responses were, and what are the gaps identified during this. And all this is happening not on your production but on your digital twin. This gives you a big leverage during an actual incident. It helps you build a robust response system within your organization. That's the objective. Let's look at case 3. It's about vulnerability forecasting in a smart manufacturing plant. Scenario here is a company implemented AI enabled digital twin in a smart factory environment for predictive maintenance and security monitoring. For maintenance and monitoring. Now think through. This is also applicable for your organization. You have your own maintenance and you definitely have your own security monitoring. So you can replace this organization with your organization. The objective is to anticipate which devices might become vulnerable due to outdated firmware or misconfiguration. Does it sound real? Does it sound similar to your current environment? You do have firmwares which are potentially outdated. You do have potential misconfiguration in your system. And with this, you want to anticipate what can become vulnerable. So, using AI and ML on your digital twin, using time series analysis to learn the update cycle of the devices. With this, you map the security patch history and the known common vulnerability and exposures. You forecast which device would likely be vulnerable within 30 to 60 days. The insight that you get is AI would flag a set of PLCs or your equipment that has delayed firmware updates and matched known vulnerabilities. Basically, you can have a pretty solid visibility on what could be vulnerable. Either it is already vulnerable or potentially getting vulnerable in 30 to 60 days or 90 days history. The results? It helps you to update your devices ahead of known threats or any campaign. The twin simulation showed what the potential attack impact would be if the devices had remained vulnerable. Case study 4: Predictive cyber risk in cloud infrastructure. Scenario: well, a mid sized insurance company creates a digital twin of its multi cloud environment during cloud migration. Now, it could be a mid sized insurance company, a large size insurance company, or a banking company. You can put your own organization as the one in the scenario and then think through. The objective of this scenario is to forecast potential misconfiguration and access risk before the system goes live. That's the objective. Using AI ML, the digital twin replicates the cloud IAM policy, its storage permission, and the network flow. The machine learning analyzes patterns in identity and access behavior to flag excessive privileges or open bucket. What it discovers, it detects that the backup storage was publicly accessible in one S3 bucket simulation. AI also predicted that excessive admin rights granted to temporary user could lead to privilege escalations. Outcome: security policies would require to be revisited before going live. The tin simulation avoided what could have become a real data leak or an insider threat. Now think from this. It's you, your organization. You want to test this infrastructure before it goes live. Using this scenario, the first thing is creating your digital twin, implementing AI ML on all of the points that is there. Then put your current state the way it is, the policies the way it has been designed as such. Bring in your red team, bring in your blue team, bring in the experts from each domain, whether it is the ID and access management team, a storage team, a network team. Build a red team for each of them. Let them go and crack it. Try to crack it. Should be easy if there are vulnerabilities. What if there is no vulnerability? Fantastic. You are ready to go. That's your objective, isn't it? But if the crack team is able to get through and break your system, you know where or which area is broken. Because it's a digital twin, it's identical to what you have. Even if you are breaking it, you are not actually breaking the real system. You can fix all that is there that has been identified on this. as a test bed, and then you can get all that once tested, retested till the time it's bulletproof. Replicate that to the real environment. This gets you ready. I hope this helps you with the context. Case 5, Smart Grid Anomaly Detection. GE Digital used digital twin combined with ML in smart power grid to monitor electrical substation and distribution systems. In this, the goal was to detect anomalies in equipment behavior that could signal both operational faults and potential cyber intrusions, like induced overvoltage and so on. Using AI and ML, AI learned what normal behavior across substations looks like. Any deviation, whether it is voltage spike, load irregularity, were all simulated in the twins first. The twins helped identify whether the anomaly was physical degradation or cyber induced. The outcome, it prevented false alarms and supported timely incident response by distinguishing real attacks from technical faults. This is in summary. Digital twins allow cybersecurity teams to test different architecture or configurations in a risk free environment before deployment. This is secure by design architecture testing. Incident response and forensic. Well, digital twins can act as a sandbox for incident simulations, helping reproduce attack scenarios, helps to evaluate the root causes of the attacks. It helps you to test various containment and recovery strategy. Let's look at case study. The first is from a BFSI segment theory for a core banking systems. The private sector bank, now this could be your bank, your financial institution. You can replace this with your own organization. Think this is your organization. Let's run with it. The private sector bank develops a digital twin of its core banking application stack, which includes middleware, transaction database, API gateways, and user access controls. Now, the goal here is to safely simulate cyber attacks like SQL injection or API abuse, insider privilege escalation, without real impacting to the services. So, the twin sandbox use is to simulate an insider privilege misuse where an employee accessed dormant account records, reproduced a real past incident to understand how it unfolds. So you can have this first condition wherein using the twin you can sandbox it to test out what can an insider do, how he can use and misuse on the twins. That means not impacting your production. You can look at how the behavior would be. Now, again, best way to do is using your red team. and of course bringing your other team to see how would they respond to. Starting off with red team trying to break in. Do remember it's a twin, so you can actually break it without damaging your production. And then you can do a test on what methods were used to break in, which are the weak point, which was the easier way to break. That gives you a lot of insight. The second part is doing the same exercise and bringing in the blue team to see how they can defend, what was their mechanism, what was the response time to the break-in, whether they were able to stop it, how much time they took, what was the reason for the time that they had taken if it is long enough, or can there be an improvement done using this learning, this observation. You can test various containment strategies such as disabling user roles, revoking tokens, and isolating affected microservices. But then this is all done on a twin service, so hence no impact to your production. This can go on as BAU as your productions are in parallel running. So this is literally a team which is actually breaking your system without impacting your production. And then you're learning and improving. The outcome, you identify that logging gaps cause delays. Example, or the outcome is, in this case, is fine tune the SIME alerting rules based on the sandbox result and cut the response time by percentages for later live scenarios. So all that can go wrong should go wrong in this digital twin scenario or setup. Break the system. This is a place where bug bounties can come in and test it. This is a place where you can have your trainees to test, experiment. This is a place where you can bring your experts to break the systems. You can check the various scenarios from different level of maturity of your red teams. It would be a big surprise if a trainee or a script kiddie is able to come in and break it. A big red flag on how the structure is designed. Having said that, there is no loss. The whole idea is to test and get this in. So this scenario helps the organization be ready in every possible potential combination of compromise. Second scenario, a country's smart nation initiative. The purpose is to simulate cyber physical attacks on urban systems like traffic lights, water treatment plants, and public transport. Using the twin sandbox, you simulate ransomware attack on smart traffic controllers. Example. Now, ransomware is not necessarily on a country's infrastructure, it could be your organization, which is generally the case here. So, you can have your simulation for ransomware, very focused, or it can be part of your overall strategy to break in. You can model different attack vectors like compromised IoT gateways or manipulated firmware updates and so on. And then you can evaluate the root cause of delays in detecting anomalous signals. It could be delay in detecting, or it could be why it was able to break in the first place. Why was anyone able to break in? What was that basic engineering flaw or your architectural design gap that allowed it to break? What part is an opportunity to fix, improve, create layers of defense? And then, of course, how you can delay it, how potentially stop it completely. You can design your recovery strategy. You can simulate switching controls to backup systems, how fast you could you, for all of the systems? Generally, in a very large organization with a complex setup, you might be able to move maybe 99 out of 100. Then that one system was not tested in the past and you couldn't move it, compromising the whole 99. This is a place where you can do it, get that recorded, and thought through how you can get that one out of the gap, fix it. You can test your response playbooks. It could be for segmentation or alerting. In this case, a citizens alert system. It could be your internal organization alert system. Outcome, it helps you to refine your cyber incident response framework. It helps you to create blueprint for incident containment in critical infrastructure. Scenario 3, Airbus Cyber Range and Digital Twin Simulation. The context here is Airbus developed a Cyber Range, a digital twin based cyber range platform for secure system simulations. And again, it could be your organization also in a different context, but the concept is the same. They used to reproduce complex attack on avionics systems, could be GPS spoofing or radio interference. They simulated cross-domain attacks from IT to flight control systems, and they evaluated both technical root cause and human response timelines. The benefit, they trained incident responder in lifelike simulations, and they tested the effectiveness of layered containment like disconnecting flight critical system from affected interfaces. Now this could be your organization also, your infrastructure, your setup. All of these concepts are applicable to almost every organization. So hope this gives you a better perspective now. Let's look at few more case studies. Case study 4. This is from the oil and gas. An oil refinery creates a digital twins of its SCADA system to model operational and cyber risk. Using their twin sandbox use, they simulated a Stuxnet like attack where PLCs were manipulated to overpressure a pipeline. They analyzed the log trails and telemetries to find the root cause, which is a compromised firmware update server. They tested mitigation strategy, restoring firmware from backups, reimaging operators' workstation, and updating access control. The outcome? They validated the need for a were able to validate the need for an air-gapped updated server. And they developed a playbook for coordinated response across IT and OT systems. So anyone who is from this industry, oil and gas or chemical, dangerous goods manufacturing organization, this is a case study which is applicable for all of those. Check out with your management whether they have this in place. If not, this is now available. You can build, get the experts who can get it for you, and you would reap the benefit instantly. Simulating this helps because the threats are real and on. Case study 5. Now this is from a telecom infrastructure series. A tier 1 telecom company builds a digital twins of its BSS OSS system to test resilience against distributed denial of service and DNS hijacking. Using the twin sandbox use, they reproduced a previous distributed denial of service campaign targeting DNS resolver. Now here is it. You have all of these previous attack scenarios with you that either you would have experienced or your counterpart from the same industry would have. Use that to test against your infrastructure digital twin and see how it would affect you today. Gives you a beautiful view about what is broken. So that, why beautiful? Because now you know where the problem is and you can fix it and get it right. You can evaluate the failure path, identify overload infrastructure, weak infrastructure, vulnerable infrastructure. You can then simulate what is required. In this case, moving to an alternate DNS provider and so on. The outcome is you can tune your automatic mitigation scripts in this case or it could be your own mitigation steps, scenarios, actions, thus reducing the potential downtime. In the past it could be a couple of hours, now it could be in minutes or even lower, or you can completely eliminate the downtime. Think through, isn't it practical? It takes effort, but then that's isn't it worth an effort? Think about the cost of getting your system down for a few hours. Even minutes in a banking and financial is catastrophic. If it is critical infrastructure, think about whether it's a nuclear one. Think about it is gas. Think about it is electricity. Think about it's about water. Knocking it off for a few minutes to a few hours can be catastrophic for millions of users, thousands of customers. The cost, the implications of that against what you are building, what's more desirable. Breaking systems in digital twins is far, far acceptable than the real environment. Case study 6 is from the healthcare sector. A hospital network uses digital twins on its electronic medical record. This is a platform where all the medical records are kept. And the idea is to test for any ransomware attack. They use a twin box, sandbox for this. They run simulation of EMR encryption and patient data lockouts. Then they replay the logs from real world ransom attack like Rook or Conti to study the root cause analysis. They evaluate different recovery strategies, restoring from offline backup, segmenting the infected nodes, or shifting to paper fallback procedures. The impact, they identify what lags in their backup recovery SLAs. Then they update their BCP with more realistic RTO RPO, and they boost the staff readiness through digital twin based scenario drills. Think about it. You or your near and dear ones are in a hospital and there is a ransomware attack, and you are under treatment and the records are not available. Think about it, if it is an emergency scenario and you are in that, or your near and dear one are there. Think how it would be for you. Now think about the hospital where this is happening, where hundreds and thousands of patients are treated, many of them in critical situation, and we have this scenario. What chance we have today? Absolutely none. We have to pay what we have to pay and move on. Rather than, isn't it worthwhile to have a twin scenario been set up, test it out during your time when you are not under attack, test the attack scenario, report on what's broken, what can be fixed, what requires to be fixed, what your response times are, and fix as much as possible, or have your response time arranged in such a way so the next time that happens, will it happen? For sure it will happen, but this time you are ready. You are able to continue your operation as normal and support the critical patients who are under your care because you had prepared yourself using this scenario, using your digital twin setup. The two cases that I mentioned are highlighted on the screen. These are available, the Rook ransomware and the Conti ransomware. It's there in Akamai websites under the glossary section. You can review it and you can figure out what works for you. Let's look at the summary that we discussed till now. I hope this helps you in some way. So, a digital twin can replay past logs behavior in isolated testbeds. It can help you to visualize system chains for failure and data flow path. It can trial your playbook without disrupting production. It can allow your blue team and incident response team to learn in real time scenarios. So, how does digital twin work in cybersecurity? Well, there are various components. You have the physical systems, like the real world infrastructure device like smart grid, server farm, or factory floors. The next components are sensors and data feeds, which are your IoTs and the system telemetry providing real time data. Then you have digital replica, a virtual model that reflects the live state. Then you have the analytics engine that helps you forecasting and anomaly detection, a very critical part. This specific, the analytic engine, is the one which will help to know what is normal baseline and what is abnormal in comparison. Then you have the security model, which include your IDS, your IPS, your SIM connectors, and compliance controls. I hope this gives you a little better perspective on what this whole digital twin scenario is. Let's look at two case studies demonstrating how the key components of digital twins, which is the physical system, sensor, data feeds, digital replicas, AI analytics engine, security module, how they interact in cybersecurity scenario across the BFSI, IT, industrial, and critical infrastructure domain. Case study 1. Let's look at from an ATM network security perspective. What are the physical systems? Well, there are hundreds and thousands of ATMs across a branch. You get logs from the ATM OS, the biometric devices, the CCTV feeds, the network routers, and so on. Then you simulate that ATM network, including its routing, its authentication workflow, and its software stacks. You use the AI ML model to detect any unusual access patterns. Now, do note, you need to first get what is normal, what is BAU, what are usual traffic patterns. That means you need to have historical data, or you can build a system, a digital replica, and then allow the AI to or the ML to review the normal transaction for a certain period of time. The period could be a day, week, month, depend on what is the area that you are going to cover, the scope, the pattern, the transaction, the type of data it flows, so that it gets a clear view about what a normal transaction looks like. Then you integrate that with the SIM integration for simulated patch deployment and containment drills. The use case here is a sudden spike in cash withdrawal at midnight, flagged by the AI engine as anomalous. Now, do note, it can only tell something is anonymous once it knows what the baseline is. So it's important the baseline is solid, or at least it gives you 99% of an clear understanding on the baseline, so it understands deviations. The digital twin can replay the scenario, find coordinated attacks on few ATMs with outdated firmwares. The security module triggers the policy enforcement. It isolates the ATMs from the network and deploys the firmware updates. Outcome: the attacks are identified and contained. Recovery and forensic completed via digital replica without impacting the live system. Now, how does it work? Well, assuming it's your organization and assuming that you are from banking sector, you have this same scenario wherein you have a couple of thousand ATMs or more in your estate. You create your digital replica, and you do that, you ensure that all the relevant and the definition of relevant can come from your architects. How does the transaction flow, where it starts, where it ends, what are the different things that processes, all of those should be part of your digital replica. Once you do that, then you allow the AI to understand what's the normal baseline. Once it understands the baseline, is where you can either do a simulation of abnormal transactions, abnormal time. That is something that can be used by specialists using your red team or expert from outside or a vendor who specializes in break-ins. and see how they do, and then again the AI can review the pattern and identify how they were able to and which part of the system is weak or broken or vulnerable. Using this, once you have that in place, is where you can get your case studies as a reference point and build up your responses. Now, while this is already in play, that means next time when a real scenario like this happens, do note you have your analytics and monitoring in place for your actual environment. So when that happens, and because you have tuned or learned your lessons in the digital twin environment, your real environment is already ready and up, which means similar scenarios would have an action which you have predefined, just either stopping the attack completely or reducing the impact by either having countermeasures, or your response times could be quick enough to contain the damage. This is all possible because you had already simulated all of these in your digital twin environment. That's the context. Now think through how this plays in your environment. Which part of it can be simulated in similar way? Case 2. Let's look at security from a smart factory. Physical systems are CNC machines, PLCs, conveyor belts, etc. The sensors here are different, which are IoT sensors containing temperature, rate, temperature related aspect, voltage, so on, and other device telemetry. You create a twin of the full factory process, physical layout, logical operations. You run your AI to understand the baseline first, and then you can look at what an anomaly is, if then there is an anomaly identified. And then you monitor for any unauthorized access or change in the PLC or OT firewall integration. In this, the digital twin case detects any unusual logics in any of the equipments of the PLC which are deviation from the trained behavior pattern. The root causes can be traced to unauthorized firmware updates indicating a supply chain compromise. That means while you had done your security onboarding clearly for all the assets that is there with you, your vendor or your supply chain had an asset which was not in line and caused this compromise or whatever weaknesses was identified. Which means while you have isolated and rolled back through the twins, the outcome is in the real term you can prevent a physical damage, you can relook at your supply chain trust, sandbox their testing, and then work on it from there on. The whole idea here is that you are able to simulate all the potential break-ins. Now do note one additional thing in this scenario is it is just not your setup. You are including the setup of your providers. So your supply chain, if it can be incorporated into your digital twin, because it's a critical part of your operations, you can increase the scope of your preparedness. Next case study. This is about the cloud infrastructure, digital twin in that space. So in this, the physical system is multi-cloud infrastructure. It could be AWS, Azure, microservices, databases. The sensors are API calls, IAM logs, flow logs, container telemetry, etc. You create a digital twin of microservices, dependencies, virtual machines, IAM structures. Then you predict which misconfiguration could escalate into data breaches. Then you automate validation against CIS benchmarking and simulate role exploitation. In this use case, during IAM policy audit, AI engine flags have over permissive roles in staging environment. The twin simulates escalation path. Attacker could reach production data via staging S3 buckets. Is that a possibility? You can do that testing here itself in the twin. The security modules might require an update in policy from an IAM perspective, thus denying access. It can't move across the board. Outcome, the risk is mitigated proactively without changing the production policy itself and the evidence stored for audit. Now, two things here. When you say evidence stored for, there are two parts. One is while you are simulating the whole scenario and trying to see which part is weak and which part requires attention, which part works the way you are designed to, or where it doesn't, where it is not working the way it is designed. While this all of these are happening, you also are logging all of these, which means you have tested it out and you have fixed it out. Now, once you have a real scenario and you run through it, if it behaves the way you have behaved or designed it in your twins, you have a clear case with you wherein you demonstrate to your regulator or your auditor that you have things in control and here are the evidences of your test as well as your real production. Now, if there is a deviation between, it means that you need to rework on your deviations in your test, fix it, and then come back and fix the actual. In both the cases, it's a good story to build in, wherein you know what your setup is, what your setup does, what is the weakness, and how you have addressed it. All of this with a recorded evidence. All of this brings in confidence with the regulator and your stakeholders. Case study 4, power grid. This is about resiliency, cyber resiliency in your power grid environment. What are the physical systems? Well, the grid substations, smart meters, transformers. The sensors are SCADA telemetry, voltage, load data, smart meter activity, etc. The digital replica is the whole grid network topology, the load of the line, the flows, the control logics. The AI analytics engine forecasts the load anomalies and detects spoofed sensor data. Security module perspective, it integrates with ICS specific IDS, IPS, and containment protocol. So now the use case is all AI flags false reading from multiple smart meters, suspected data spoofing attack. The digital tin reproduces the incident to isolate affected nodes and simulate power routing. Security module triggers grid segmentation and initiate patch deployment remotely. The outcome? You maintain service continuity, detected root cause, unauthorized access, or a compromised vendor tool. Now, in this scenario, what you end up doing here is you're simulating the whole environment, which includes the whole design of your smart grid, which includes the component, the subcomponent, the telemetries, the all these smart sensors are also part of your digital twin. So when you have a scenario or when you bring in the experts who can trigger an attack, they would trigger an attack is through all of these sensors, through all of this infrastructure. And when it is observed, so one is BAU in normal. So the twin in its normal state of BAU, how does it work is what the AI would know about. Then when there is an attack scenario, they would know how the difference would look like. What is the pattern of difference? Then what is causing, and if it causes a disruption, how does the disruption look like? This forms the base for your action and countermeasures. Once you do that on your twin, then that is what you replicate in your actuals, which includes your maintenance and and fixing the causes that you would have seen in the twins, and then that's where any compromises are identified. So this is the next scenario which can help you visualize where these can be used in your environment. Case study 5. It's a hospital. In the hospital, the critical is the patient record, patient data. The physical stream is EMR servers, clinical workstation, backup systems. The sensors here are logs, endpoints, EDI telemetry. You can create a digital replica of the complete network with patient flows, how the data flows, how the patient data entry comes in, where it gets stored, where it gets processed, and how it gets destroyed or when it is required to clean up. The AI knows, understands the performance in its normal, then it knows when there is a deviation. The whole idea here is to simulate any ransomware attack or similar denial of service or any compromise. So the replica is used to test the time to lateral movement. So once someone gains an access, how can or would they be able to move laterally? How you can contain the effectiveness via segmentation? Is there a segmentation currently which might not be supportive of a secure setup. A digital replica, a twin, can help you identify that and you can help segment it and then observe the behavior, whether a segmentation, how it can stop an attack or reduce the impact. How can help you to recover either cold or warm backup using it. Outcome, the BCP plan can be updated based on real-time metrics. Similarly, the playbook can be also be defined or redesigned. This is in summary. Yeah, we discuss ATM network, we discuss the factory, the cloud, the power grid, and the hospital EMR. You can pause the screen, you can look at it, take a screenshot, and think through whether it works for you. Let's look at an operation flow. The real system sends live telemetry to the digital twins. Telemetry here is are all the sensors that you have in your infrastructure. So do note, while your digital twin is a replica, your digital twins receive the same telemetry that you would get in your real environment. Yeah, potentially in real time. Okay. Now, of course, in real time, when it is the real data moving into a twin, you need to factor in certain more regulations from a GDPR perspective or DPDP perspective or any regulation that affects you, because this is a test area. Can you have your real data, customer information in your test environment? The answer is no. So that means you might need to put additional protection of masking the data, customer information when it is moving. But the point here is the idea is not the customer data. The idea is protecting the customer data, protecting or understanding an attack factor. So you can have a certain level of additional control before the data actually reaches the twins. While in the actual environment, it will flow the way it has been designed to, because those are bells and whistles which will be required there. So the real system sends live telemetry to the digital twins. The twin processes this with AI to detect vulnerabilities or simulate attacks. Based on the simulation or trends, alerts are triggered or preventive actions are proposed. So this is how generally the operational workflow would be. Let's look at security application across industry. We have ICS, smart cities, data centers, and financial institutions. When you look at ICS, the industrial control system, the use case is power utility companies deploying digital twins for its substations. The purpose is to detect and simulate malware like Industrier or Stuxnet. The impact is to prevent sabotage by anticipating effect of malicious code on PLCs. When it comes to smart cities, the use case is a city deploying digital twins for traffic systems, water grids, and emergency response. And the purpose here is cybersecurity uses the twin to run ransomware simulation on smart traffic lights. The outcome is to prepare for contingency plan for real world disruptions. When it comes to data center and cloud environment, the use case is a hyperscale cloud provider builds a digital twins of its architecture. The usage is to test different firewall configurations, distributed denial of service mitigation strategies, and zero trust enforcement. The idea is the result that requires to be achieved is to reduce the risk of service downtime and improve resiliency. When it comes to financial institution, the use case is a bank creating a digital twin of its core transaction platform. The benefit is to allow security operations center to simulate insider threat and test transaction anomaly detection. The whole objective is to improve detection rates for fraudulent behaviors without customer impacts. Let's look at some of the case studies. The first one is an organization and industrial digital twin scenario. The organization uses digital twin on its manufacturing plants to simulate cyber attacks on machineries. The focus from a security perspective is they ran the simulated ransomware on digital twin to identify weak points. The result, they enhanced their OT patching strategy and hardened network segmentation without disrupting any operations. Second case study, a country's Smart Nation initiative. The background, the country launched a digital twins on urban infrastructure under its Smart Nation strategy. The benefit, they simulated cyber attacks on water and power systems to model ripple effect. Result, they improved their critical infrastructure cyber resiliency and developed an effective emergency playbook. Now, this case study should resonate with all of the modern countries or countries trying to reach a smart city or smart nation state. When you do that with all the bells and whistles, also increases the risk of cyber attacks. So, creating a digital tin on those is a real case study, is a real deal. And with organizations of large size able to implement it, a nation state should be able to do it more effectively with the resources that they have. Case study 3, and a company, organization and engine monitoring. Context, the organization developed a digital twins for its aircraft engine. They manufactured that. From a security angle, when onboard system faced GPS spoofing risk, the twins was used to simulate the mitigation strategy. Outcome, they provided a robust detection method and failover procedures for in-flight scenarios. Think about this. If this is not the case, then you are traveling on a flight and we have a scenario wherein an engine is at risk because of attack. Would you like to be in that plane? Of course, no. So, you are not going to do a simulate when it is happening. Basically, the organization is thinking through on this, creating the scenario, testing the scenario, getting those things in place which can stop these from happening, or have a robust plan when in case a scenario like this materializes. Now let's look at challenges of implementing the digital twin for cybersecurity. Starting off with data integrity and authenticity. Well, this is a case of garbage in, garbage out. That is, if the sensor is compromised, the twin reflects a false state. Yeah. So you might create a digital twin, but the data that the digital twin is receiving from a sensor which is compromised, which means your digital twin while working has no effectiveness because the input that it is getting is itself flawed or compromised. In order to mitigate these, you need to first implement a robust data validation and secure your telemetry channels. So before implementing your twin, just fix the source inputs so that a clean data is received by the twin so that you achieve the objective that you intended to create through the digital twin. The second challenge is complexity and scalability. Well, modeling large scale systems require vast computing resources. Well, solution here is to use a cloud native twin with edge AI and distributed workload. There could be various combinations of it. Next is security of the twin itself. Do note, as the real infrastructure can be attacked, twins can also be attacked. The controls that require is you need to apply your standard cybersecurity controls. Could be firewalls, MFA, encrypted storage to the twin environment also. But the purpose of the twin is to replicate your life environment and test attacks on the twin so that you can improve. You need to ensure that first, the inputs that is coming to the twin itself is cleaned up, and second, the twin itself is protected so it can do the job. Do note, its job is to simulate, test, and test in confidence that it is itself not compromised. The next aspect is regulatory and privacy risk. As mentioned earlier, storing personal or critical operational data in digital twin may raise compliance issues. So you need to ensure that you have some form or at least enough security in place like data masking, anonymization, and purpose limitation. So that you don't end up having an excellent digital twin in place with providing all the bells and whistles for you, but you have breached the first law of customer data breach. That is, the customer data itself is compromised in the twin because you have shared that all. Do note, a twin is your test bed, and test bed has its set rules of ensuring that live data, customer data are not available or visible or can be compromised in it. So I think you need to be very careful about how you treat the test. Your twins should be considered equal to your test environment. So what policies apply to your test environment should also be applying onto the twin environment from a data perspective. Let's look at the future of cybersecurity strategy. First is integration with SOC and SIEM. Twins can feed enriched data to SIEM for improved correlation. Hence, incident responders can test their responses on the twin before taking the real world actions. The AI powered example, you have a vulnerability or a compromise been identified and you want to implement a patch. That can be tested on a twin first and then quickly see the response, and then it can be implemented on your live environment. Hence, as you see, as you understand now, your 10 is actually your test bed. Your test bed might not be able to replicate anything and everything in your environment because of the size and the variety and the scale. But Twin gives you that flexibility to do so much more better than what you have in your current test environment. The AI powered threat modeling. The Twin combines with AI can auto generate attack graphs showing the most likely paths that can take. It can support the red teaming exercise without live system interference. From a compliance and auditing perspective, regulators may increasingly require digital twin simulation to demonstrate compliance. Digital twins can automate evidence gathering for audits also. Next, let's look at a simplified concept, a home security analogy. Imagine your home has a camera, a motion sensor, a smart lock. A digital twin of your home shows your real time layout. It knows if windows or doors are open. It lets you simulate a break in to see if your alarm triggers correctly. It can also suggest better lock placement or camera angles. In cybersecurity, the home is your digital infrastructure, and the twin is your always on virtual assistant, predicting, defending, and teaching you how to stay safe. Let's look at some future trends here and innovations that are currently in play. The cyber physical twin. Well, future digital twins will model not just the digital component but physical states, whether it is temperature, vibrations, and so on, that could be affected by cyber incidents. Autonomous response systems. Well, with sufficient learning, twins may eventually suggest or even automate responses to attack, like isolating a segment on the network. Today, this is done potentially from your current tool in some form and shape, but using digital twins, you can simulate, test in real time also, and trigger an action for isolation or a response to the attack. Could be blocking or total shutdown of certain ports or infrastructure to isolate the damage. Using blockchain for secure twins. Well, using blockchain to ensure the integrity of the twins' data and state history is an emerging approach. What we discussed earlier, what if the twin itself is compromised or the integrity is compromised? Well, that's where the blockchain can play a role in combination to securing the twins infrastructure. The next is twins as a service. Interesting. SaaS. Cloud provider in future may offer, they had already started, may offer digital twin as a service with plug and play cyber capabilities or for SMBs or small and medium businesses. I hope this gives you a little better perspective on the usages and future trends and innovations in digital twin space. Let's look at from a checklist perspective. When you start with it, there are a few phases of it, starting off with strategic planning. The first thing that you have to do is defining the objective. You need to clarify your goals, whether it is cybersecurity simulation, IT operation modeling, or for fraud detection, or regulatory compliance testing, or all of these. Recommended is pick one goal first as you're starting off new here. So, your planning should be first with defining your objectives. Then, important is to have your executive buy in. Secure your leadership approval with a business case showing the return on investment and the risk that you are mitigating. Map your use cases. In case of BFSI, fraud modeling, real time transaction monitoring, compliance testing. So, you have to map that use cases. From a IT perspective, network resiliency, infrastructure performance, zero trust architecture simulation, all of these are to be factored in your strategic planning. Your leadership should know what is that they are investing and what is that they get in return. Because that's what a leadership would like to see. So that when the investment of money and time is done, the results are known well in advance as to what is the general expectation that is there. So that's the first step, your strategic planning. Then you go about discovering your assets. You inventorize the physical and the logical assets. Could be server, application, network topology, endpoints, your core banking platforms, your payment gateways, your cloud APIs. Then important is to map your dependency. Identify what's connected with what. How is your CRM connected to core banking connected to payment switches, and so on and so forth. This is where you bring your architect, your application architect, your infrastructure architect into play. Without which connecting the dots is going to be difficult. Don't rely on operation guys completely. They would have a certain perspective for sure, but it's the architect who designed your infrastructure, your application architect, designed your application. Bring them at this stage. Look at your source for identification. It could be SIM logs, API traffic, telemetry inputs. So that's when it comes, that's the space where you have an asset and data discovery space. Then you look at your risk and threat landscape. Conduct your threat modeling. Use framework like Mitre attacks, Stride for initial threat and scenarios. Determine what are your vulnerable areas. Highlight the points of entry, high level assets. What are your high level assets? What are your potential lateral movement routes? Then factor in your regulatory requirement. Look at what regulations govern your business. What are their requirements? Example, it could be RBI security norms or SBI security guidelines or ISO 27001, NIST CSF, PCI DSS, DPDP Act, anything and everything that is applicable to you. Factor that in. What are they expecting from you? Should be known at this phase. Once you achieve this, then you move to the next phase of architecture and design. What type of twin types you want? Description. What's your current state mapping? Be descriptive. Should be what anomaly detection and forecasting you are expecting from this. What are the countermeasures that you have in play? Decide on your hosting model, whether it is on-premise or be a sensitive BFSI environment, or it could be cloud native, or it could be hybrid for balancing control and flexibility. Once you do that, then you go and select your tools, platforms. It could be your Azure Digital Twins, it could be AWS IoT Twin Makers, or Siemens MindSphere, ANSYS, any logic, or in-house build. Anything and everything that can be applicable which suits your environment. Do note, you have selected a tool after you achieved all the earlier steps. Do not do it the other way around, getting into tool and then trying to figure out. Use this step for the correct direction. Once done, then you have to build in the cybersecurity controls within the team, within the twin. Select your twin environment. Enable your MFA, role-based access, encrypted channels. Implement your continuous monitoring. Ensure your IDS, IPS sensor feeding the twins. Ensure there is data governance control, which is about masking, anonymization, and what will be a retention policy. Do note you are governed by a regulator, a regulation, your own internal policy. You can't have a deviation in a twin. Especially in twin, the data masking, the anonymization are critical. Once done, then you go with the integration and modeling aspect, where you ingest the real-time data. You integrate with log sources, applications, APIs, infrastructure telemetry. Then you model normal and abnormal behavior. This is a step that I discussed multiple times. To understand what is abnormal, you have to know what a normal looks like. And to understand what normal looks like, you need to have enough data. And that enough definition is organization to organization, sector by sector, depending on how the transactions are. If the transactions are real time and continuous, then you might have a lesser period to get a normal baseline. But if your transactions are in between, that means there is an X transaction for an environment which happens once in a week, then you can't take a data of a week to understand what a normal looks like. You might need at least 4 to 5 weeks or 10 weeks of data to understand what a normal is. In rare cases, in some cases where you might have a certain asset working once in a month, could be a backup trigger. In that case, even 1 month of data is not good enough, because having 1 month of data is a problem, it's a trouble, because it's not good enough data. So you have to be choosy, you have to be very conscious about what is the base reference that you are looking at for defining the normal. Because if you define the normal with good enough number of data, then detection of abnormality should be accurate, efficient, and effective. Train your AI ML model to detect deviations. Once done, validate the model accuracy. Ensure fidelity and data consistency between real and twin systems. Always have that cross verification, because you are doing a tuning. Once the tuning is in place, then you might have not require so much of daily tuning done. But initially, when there is learning phase, the teething issues might be there. So be mentally prepared for it. Then you do simulation and testing. Run your cybersecurity simulation. That's where your red team will come into big play. Your blue team will come into big play. Simulations could be distributed denial of service, could be phishing, could be ransomware, could be insider threats. Test your responses to the incident. Use twins to simulate breach and refine process response plans. Perform red team, blue team exercise. Use twin for attack defense drills. Once you achieve this, is where you do integration with security ops. Connect to SOC and threat intel platforms. Feed your simulation results into SIEM and SOAR, and automate the alert correlation and enrichment, and generate compliance evidence and audit logs. At this phase, you next enter the continuous improvement phase, where you establish your feedback loop. You redefine, refine the model based on the incident outcome and emerging threats. Do note the threats are emerging. What you have designed based on the latest might not be latest with the next threat. The next threat would be more refined. In that case, the learning path is required. Hence, the continuous improvement is a real time improvement, continuously learning and refining. Schedule regular twin refresh, reflect changes in the infrastructure or business operation. Monitor the metrics, simulating accuracy, detection efficiency. Now, here, one of the aspects that comes into is your change management process. Change management process need to factor in your digital twin environment. If your physical environment or real business environment has changed in any form and shape, even one small entity, it need to get reflected in your digital twin. Which means if your process ensures that anything and everything changes in your environment via a change management process, one of the aspects in the change management process that need to get additional steps would be updating your digital twins there and then, not considering a change complete unless that is done. It is additional step, it is additional effort, but if you think that you will do it once a week, once a month, once in a year, you have lost the original idea of why you wanted a digital twin in the first place. So that's one additional piece. It could be a big piece if there is a big environmental change, but that's how you have to balance it out. The criticality of digital twins, once understood, this would not be a challenge, because what it saves you from the losses that you would incur in case of a threat getting materialized against what the effort is required to. The effort is much lesser than the benefit that you get. So, change management will play a big role here. Next, we come to the final aspect of governance and compliance. To define the ownership, assign the responsibility to either GRC, CISO, CTO teams, cut, slice, and dice and assign it responsibility. Create a twin specific policy, how the usage would be, how the data would be accessed, what would be the life cycle, what would be the review cycle. Ensure regulatory alignment, which is document how twin supports compliance with industry regulations. I hope these steps would help you in your planning. The whole objective of this video session is to introduce you to twins, the setup, the concept of it. The whole idea behind giving example is so that you have a clarity on thought as to how you want to use the concept of twins in your organization, various scenarios that potentially can work for you, and more and much more. What I have given you is a small tip in the iceberg. It's the creativity or the wisdom of your individual teams, your architect team, your strategist. They can think through as to how digital twins can leverage the skills that you have and the investment that you want to make. In conclusion, digital twins are revolutionizing how organizations think about security. From early warning systems and incident simulations to strategic planning and compliance testing, the applications are vast and growing. While challenges remain, especially around complexity and data security, the benefits are clear. Cybersecurity is no longer just reactive. With digital twins, it becomes proactive, predictive, and even preemptive. In a world of evolving threat, this is a powerful paradigm shift. I hope you are ready. If not, this video is for you to prepare and be ready. We covered the agenda as we have planned up. I hope this triggers your thought to get your strategic hat in place, get your teams together, share this video with your team so that all are on the same page, understand the concept, and then you can trigger your internal meetings and conversations, strategy thinking, and think through how this or if this can help you and your organization grow stronger. This is your host, Savit Vittal Salian, I wish you all the best in your cybersecurity thought process. Thanking you for your time. Take care. Namaskar.